Oh, hey, Alice. Hey, you showed up at a good time. We have a very special guest with us tonight, local uke bard, Garrett DeVaughn. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me.
And might I say you're looking lovely this evening.
Thank you very much. I like to get dressed up from time to time.
Yeah, what did you call it, Neve?
A very retro cyberpunk.
Yeah, that's apt.
That's the most badass description anyone's ever gave me.
So, man, like when I saw what you did, I knew I had to talk to you because you're out here. You're out there. You're out there. You're out there. Yeah, out there. Yeah. But which is perfect. This is the Mad Tea Party.
Absolutely, man. Well, I figured if you're gonna go, well, you know, I'm like 42, about to be 42. So it's like, man, if you're gonna do something, we're not half-assing it, man. I have no time. so here we are.
So let's get into the meat of it. When is the last time you cried?
Oh shit. A good hard cry.
I mean, it's up to you what kind of answer.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm fairly emotional. So the last time I, teared up a bit was my wife and I are binge watching True Blood for the 4th time, and fuck, what was it? I can't remember the episode now. It was some moment in one of the episodes that I was like, damn it, True Blood? I teared up a little. But if we're going to officially talk about crying, the last time I really cried was our cat of 10 years. Mr. Darcy was an orange tabby, like 17-pound monster. He passed Halloween night of, I guess it was 2020. It's like the worst day of my fucking life. I've experienced loss in a number of different ways. I've never cried that much, that hard, that long. It was at least a good week and a half, 2 weeks before my wife and I would stop like just randomly bursting into tears. It was brutal. It was not fun. I'm not one of those people though, that I don't look at it as, oh God, I can't have a cat. I can't do pets. It's too painful. Like, no, all the tears we shed and the pain only indicate how good it actually was. So fucking bring it on.
Right.
That was a damn good cat.
Yeah.
He was an awesome cat. We had a love-hate. I wrote a song about him. On my SoundCloud, it's a very rough draft death metal song about him. But then I have a more acousticized version called Darcy Cat Death Kill. We had a love-hate because he loved my wife. Like, my wife was his person. I was more like this guy that he liked well enough to, form a bond with, but, woke me up all the time, want to go outside, just, gave each other shit all the time. But at the end of the day, we loved each other deeply. So he was a good cat, man. He was a good cat.
This isn't like as tragic of a tale, but I have a cat story where me and this girl I was seeing at the time, this cat wandered up to our house and she convinced it to come inside, and we thought it was a kitten because it was so small.
Mhm.
And we took it to the vet the next day. It was kind of weird that it just like she was so able to let it like it was a stray cat and it just like kind of.
Usually pretty leery.
So I kind of thought it was weird, but I didn't like want to say anything. So like we realized that night that like something was wrong, and like because he was laying there, and we took him to the vet the next day and we found out it was not a kitten, it was a very malnourished tomcat.
Oh,
uh
fuck.
yeah, black cat just
Yeah.
wandered up to our house, so the vet was like, you know, it's bad, you know, we should put him down. He's like, just so you know, like stray cats do that, you know, when they're really terminally ill, they'll find it like people. And
Really?
that's what the guy said to me. But
I didn't know that.
so paid the vet fee to like put it down, and they gave us a bag to take it home in. So the other part of the story is, for an art project, I had built a giant cross in my backyard, and my girlfriend had climbed up on it, and we did like a female Christ kind of thing. But I was in the process of building this thing, and I was digging a hole to put the cross in. What I didn't realize is I was actually digging a grave, and I had a grave dug for this cat that I'd met that night.
Yep. Yep.
So this cat has a 8-foot headstone.
That is awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I don't know if it's still there. Like I moved since then,
Man,
but
stray
hope
cats, dude.
you know, I actually imagine the new owners probably took the 8-foot cross out of their backyard.
Oh,
Right.
he's fucking tormenting them now, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh shit. I didn't think about that. You disturbed the grave, so now they're all fucked.
Motherfuckers.
None of all their if they have cats now, their cats are just like probably spooked. They won't come out of like there's
Oh
like
yeah, they're not going. They're like
They
10-foot
stay
radius
under the
around the
bed.
spot. Yeah.
Miss Fluffy hasn't come out from the bed since we moved in 3 years ago. We just have to put the food down there. Ever since we took that big cross out the backyard, the cats won't come out of the closet.
I don't understand.
Put it back up. It's like the cat's like haunting them in their dreams. Put it back up.
Oh, it's terrifying.
You know, like Salem's Lot. He's gonna be tapping on the window.
Yeah.
Meow, click, 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 meow.
Man, stray cats are the best though. So we had a stray cat. We ended up calling him Rolando Esteban. And the reason I'm gonna be honest, I have no clue where that name came from. At first we thought it was a female.
Rolando Esteban.
Yeah, at first we thought it was a female, and for some reason the name Jolanda came to me when I was meeting the cat. So that's I just just kind of fiddling her like, all right, Jolanda, whatever. And then I realized it was a guy, a dude. And so I was like, okay, well, let's alter it a little. We're gonna max this out. Rolando Esteban. He was the most badass cat I've ever met though. My man was like maybe like 12 pounds, small and just super stocky. We took him to the vet. They said he was around 10 years old. He was like arthritic. There was another tomcat in the neighborhood that was like obviously younger and a good bit heavier and would just like kick this cat's ass all the time. Just Rolando took a beating all the time, but that fucker never stopped. I ended up, I've written 2 cat songs and that's the second one I wrote. And the image that came to me when I was writing it was like, he's like diehard John McClane. Like he should have been dead so long ago, but some fucking how or another, this dude just does not die.
He doesn't.
So
stop.
here's where the story gets wild. So we took him in, kind of similar to the one you and your girlfriend got. We befriended him he was around, and then at some point he was like he was just an incredibly unique cat. Dude was like a ninja. We would leave our door open, and we lived in a 700 square foot house at the time. So it's not like we didn't have like a fucking West Wing that you could just walk in and nobody see. But it was more than once that we would have our one door open and we would both be in the area of the door. And one of us would go back to our bedroom and he would be on the bed. And we'd be like, well, how the fuck did he get in? Like, how did he get past us? How did he do that? Did that a number of times. And so we took him in. He loved Mr. Darcy, which was a miracle because Darcy did not get along with other cats. They befriended each other. We took him to the vet. He had a UTI. He had all this stuff. We were like, fuck it, fix it. Let's do it. So we got him taken care of. He stayed with us for about 2 months. And then he disappeared. And we're like, well, okay, well, it's what happens. It's okay. Whatever. Like 4 months later, it's in the evening. We have friends coming over. I'm in the shower. My wife's in the kitchen getting things ready. I get out of the shower and I hear from the kitchen, just a soft, my wife, like, Garrett. I'm like, yeah. What's up? What's going on? She's like, no, it's cool. Just, you need to come in here. And I'm like, okay. I walk in and that fucking cat is just standing in the doorway after months of being gone.
Wow.
And we're like, holy shit. Hold on. I go, fuck. Oh, like he came. It's like he came in. We put some food down. He ate a little, and then he walked out. We never saw him again.
Oh my God.
And we
Wow.
really truly do believe, like we just know, like, man, that was like a final gesture of like, hey, thanks for taking care of me and helping me feel better for a minute. And now I have to leave.
Hmm.
It was a cool experience, but it was wild.
Wow. Neef, when's the last time you cried?
I guess it depends, because I look at crying the same way I look at laughing. Sometimes it's reactionary, just listening to music, but it's
Yeah.
not necessarily something I'm thinking about or something that's upset me, where it's a release. It's just an emotional reaction to whatever. And that, I mean, that's, who knows, that's all the damn time. I can give you like Bowie says, ain't there one damn song that can make me break down and cry? That song almost does every time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
I think when you showed me Heroin by Velvet Underground, I saw you tear up a little bit, maybe.
I don't know if Heroin would have done that to me, because that one was always just kind of a cool one.
That one's
But if
like,
we were listening to Velvet Underground, there might have been something. I'm not sure, because some of Lou's stuff can kind of hit you on a weird level. But Heroin doesn't. That's just a cool track.
that one got me.
Yeah, I mean, the ending of it when it gets really intense and what he's talking about can kind of, it depends on what kind of, if you catch me in a mode where I've been listening to a lot of stuff and I'm on a thing, it's a little easier. You start getting pumped up about something, just like comedy. You start watching.
Yeah.
You start watching a little bit of stand-up comedy and get you in a mode. You're more likely to just get in hysterics and be just laughing your ass off for an hour. It took me years. I think it was part of really a undomestication of, because society really, especially, growing up as a man, crying is a thing. The laughter and crying is separated so oddly in society.
Yeah.
When they're really so close together. It took me a long time to realize that it's crying or weeping are two different things.
Yeah.
Crying is, you're crying out for something, pain, usually it's pain. Weeping is a release, and I used to one of my little slick things I used to say as a rock and roller was, I don't make women cry, but I'll definitely make them weep. You know,
Cramps, don't cry.
right? But it being like being a release thing, you know, now it's something you don't. When you begin to realize that, and you're comfortable, you don't fight things like that. Just like you don't fight laughter, even if somebody's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you laughed at that." Like that's a reaction.
Why can't you believe that?
Should I run up and get mad because you started crying about something that I didn't think to cry about? Oh my God, I'm so offended that you found that upsetting.
Yeah.
You stop that crying.
Stop it.
Stop it.
I'll give you something to cry about, man. How many times did I hear that shit?
I would actually have to say the last time it was really a sad one was after. It wasn't when I found Paul Gray, my cat, because I walked outside and found him laying there, and you know, that was the first time in a long time I had that very heartened sadness. It wasn't a crying. It was just a really, I mean, like, damn, you know, it stopped me in my tracks, you know. And but when I had to tell my son, that's when I could keep it together, you know, because I had to sit down and explain to him. And when it broke him up, because I could see him hear it, and then the reality of it actually had to set into him, you know. And that was really, really one of the hardest things. I mean, you know, but I think it was a good thing because it showed him that it wasn't me sitting there with him saying, "Oh, you're all right. You stub your toe and you're crying. You ain't got to cry. You be all right. You tough." You know, because you kind of got to give that to a child, so they have a little toughness. You got to kind of register how much crying that you're really gonna, I guess, allow or accept or really respond to in a certain way. But then at the same time, you also have to teach them when times are okay. You know, when it's like it's okay that you're breaking down. We're all breaking down. You know, so but it's yeah, it's that's probably was because that was a quite a loss for us here.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah, it's tough, man. I'm
Yeah.
sorry for it.
Garrett, what are like non-musical inspirations for you? Like what movies, books, TV shows inspired you growing up? Comic books, whatever.
So growing up, it definitely would have been comics, Star Wars. My dad and I loved Jean-Claude Van Damme. So it was like a 5 to 10 year section of my life that my dad would always reference them as blood and gut movies, and we loved them. So it's funny. So like martial arts, I guess, is kind of a, if I'm going to pinpoint what it was about those movies, it was the martial arts. Now, non-music movies for sure still a big factor. So on my album, there's a song called Inner Pinhead, and it's legitimate about Hellraiser. Now there's meaning, you know, it's not a shallow song per se, you know, about fucking Pinhead.
Mm-hmm.
There's depth, but I pretty directly pull imagery from the movie, and unabashedly so.
Nice.
So yeah, sci-fi movies, big inspiration. I'd say, yeah, movies and just books. I try to read a good array of books. My favorite author is Mikhail Bulgakov, Russian dude. I had to read this book in college, and I've read it probably 5 times since then. The Master and Margarita. It's
does he have any other books that might be more known? Because his name almost sounds familiar, but I can't really.
He had quite a career. He was during Stalin time, so a lot of his stuff, especially his later things, were heavily censored for a long one. But he wrote a lot of plays. Do what?
I said we love those kind of books here.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, like I'm kind of actively trying to build a list of all the, the banned books. I want to make sure I support those artists and read them. I want to know. But yeah, Mikhail was good, man. Master Margarita was his masterpiece. He had a number of shorter books that were just bizarre sci-fi type things. One was like Head of a Dog, I think is the name of it, Heart of a Dog. And it's literally about a scientist that, fused a human with the head of a dog, and it's the behavioral outcome of that.
Mm.
He was
Wow.
a weird writer, but
Hmm.
after Stalin, many decades later, you're able to find like uncensored versions of Master and Margarita, and it's a fucking masterpiece, man.
Nice.
As somebody kind of like you had said earlier, I guess before we were recording, but I was born and raised Baptist, pretty heavy
Okay.
religion. Somewhere in mid high school, I started to really break away from that as much as I could internally. Externally, it was kind of hard to do until I got to college. But this particular book deals with a lot of like atheism and Christianity, and it's interesting because it has a really unique marriage of them where it doesn't I guess you'd have to say in the story, it does kind of, it states Christianity as being a thing, but it's not the Christianity that I was raised around. It's much more open and much more forgiving and much more loving, the way it probably is supposed to be. So anyway, and all that within a love story and Satan running around Moscow causing all kinds of disruption with a massive black cat that drinks vodka.
Hell yeah.
So it's a wicked story, man. It's awesome.
That's awesome. I'm really forgetful. Okay, so after we're done, can you like send me the name of that so I'll remember?
Yeah, I got you, man.
So you said you were raised Baptist, and I think I'm a little bit familiar like with that denomination and like the beliefs, but not like super familiar. But it sounds like you broke away from that a while back. But I guess my question is, and no one really knows, but what do you think happens after we die? Do you have any inclinations?
I do. My belief is that I believe in reincarnation. I believe that our spirit, soul, core, whatever you call it, has a purpose or a drive, and it will reincarnate as many times as it needs to figure that part out. And once that happens, then you might call it ascend, or we elevate to some higher level of consciousness. That's a very rough way to describe it. Also very well knowing that I have no fucking clue, and no fucking clue. So I'm so aware of that I have what I believe may happen.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm sitting next to somebody that's Islamic or hardcore Christian, and they say, well, this is what happens, frankly, I'm probably not going to argue with them. One, because I don't have the energy. But also, I don't know. Fuck, man, they may be right. I may be going straight to fucking hell. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
So
actually,
that's my take. I do the best I can. I try to be the best person that I can from my side of the street, my perspective, so to speak. It's not always right, and it's not always nice. But in the moment, I feel like I really try to do the best I can. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And for me, it's like, I also have no fucking clue, because it's like, I'm pretty sure it's not like fundamental Christianity. Pretty sure, but
If I had to bet
who
against,
fucking knows?
that would be the one I would bet against.
Yeah, but
Pretty pearly gate.
that being said, though, like David Bowie, I've literally met Satan. Like that is something that's happened to me, and maybe that's a story for another time.
Hey man, I got time if you want to tell it, dude.
Okay.
That sounds interesting to me.
All right, maybe I was fishing a little bit because I want to tell it. So
Let's do this.
I don't actually know if I've told this story to Alice. I'm not sure, but say what?
I don't think you have. I don't think you've ever
Okay.
brought
Well,
this up, Alice.
Here we
okay.
go.
This is
So-
a heavy one, Alice. I'm gonna put my big headphones on for this.
Yeah,
So,
right.
it all started with me and my friend Philip took some acid that he had brought, and we only took one, but it was amazing. And him and my other friend were trying to convince me to play Smash Bros. Because Super Smash Bros is my game. That's like I'm good at like only a couple of things in life, and that's one of them. And yeah, I've been playing that since like Nintendo 64, and like I grew up with it. Like I was young when that one came out, so like it's been with me in my development. And anyway, they were trying to convince me to play, but I'm like, man, I don't think I could right now. Like I'm so discombobulated. Like I feel like almost like I'm drunk. Like I couldn't hold the controller. And they're like, just try it. I'm like, okay. So like, my my like I guess like assumption was right, and like I couldn't like play correctly, and then like as we started like talking, like my friend David started talking about the zone and getting in the zone.
Yeah.
And that's something I've heard before, but I don't think I really understood it. And he was like, it's a flow state. What it is you're taking your ego out of it and you become part of a process, completely integrated, streamlined into it.
Like in real time, in the moment. Yeah.
And he was like, this is what like top athletes tap into, and like, so I enter like this flow state with like I get so into Smash Bros that like I feel like I'm watching what's happening on the screen, but it's like I'm so disconnected from. I'm like, am I doing that? Am I doing that? Am I? And the thing is, it took me a minute, but I started playing better than I have in my entire life. I started doing multiple frame perfect inputs consecutively, like a machine, dude. And then I went online because I'm like, am I hallucinating? Do my friends just suck that bad? And so I took it online, and I'm like, nope, no, I'm fucking killing it. I'm playing, and now I have like the rank to show like how much better I'm playing than I was before. And I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And then something I realized is like, oh man, I've been here before. I just didn't realize it. Like,
Okay.
I think we all come in and out of it all the time, but I didn't know.
Mhm.
Anyway, we stopped playing Smash Bros, and my friend David goes away, and me and Philip just he starts asking me really introspective questions about myself. And I don't really know why, but it almost felt like a therapy session. Like, I don't know why I didn't question it. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Was that unique to him? Like, did he ever do that before that, or was this kind of like out of nowhere?
I get no. I guess like I guess he had come in from out of town, and we don't see each other very often. So I guess
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I guess it made sense.
Okay.
But I guess it was also kind of like really personal, but I didn't really think about it at the time because I was tripping.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
But I guess I should also preface, we had discussed earlier in the day making contact with Lucifer. I make a distinction. Lucifer is fallen angel, representative of pride. He's like the beautiful angel with black wings.
Yep.
That's Lucifer to me. That's separate from Satan, the god of wrath, ruler of hell.
Gotcha. Fair enough. That makes sense.
Yeah. So anyway, he starts asking me questions about myself. And at a certain point, like we're really tranced out. And my reality, it's hazy how I exactly got there, but my reality was like overlaid with a different landscape. And it was something about this meditation we were doing, something about this introspection. And all around me was like brimstone with lava running through it. And it looked like the inside of a volcano, but there's no top. Like,
Yeah.
So where my friend was, he was actually sitting on this couch, and he had his hands like this. Well, and I was sitting in a chair right over here, and there was maybe 4 or 5 feet between us. He was no longer there, but Satan was there, but he was further away, much further away. There was a lot of distance between us. And my friend had his hands up like this. Well, have you ever seen Legend with Tom Cruise and Tim Curry?
It's been a long while, but yeah.
He looked exactly like Tim Curry.
Okay. That sounds right.
Big
Tim Curry,
horns coming
fucking
out.
terrifying in that movie.
Yeah. Red, muscular, big horns coming out, and like goat legs.
Yeah.
And he wasn't looking at me. He was looking straight ahead of him, and he was sitting on this chair, on his throne. And he wasn't looking at me. He was just looking straight ahead of him. He was almost like a living statue. And he said, "Why are you here?" And I realized he was like addressing me, but he wasn't looking at me. And I was like, I don't know, because that was true. I don't know how I got here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, he started getting impatient. He's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, I don't know. And we had a little bit more communication, but I don't remember all of it. But I do remember that he got really upset, and he was like, "What do you want?" And I was like, I guess I just want to know if you're proud of me. And when I said that, I felt like, it's like there was like this rumbling in the ground, but it felt like cruel laughter. Like the walls and the floor were like laughing at me. Like all the souls in hell were like ridiculing me, because I just asked the god of pride if he's proud of me. And Satan did not find it funny. Satan turned and looked at me at that point, and his angry gaze physically hurt me. Like it hurt the way he was putting his like judgment on me. Like the guilt like hurt, like the judgment, I guess. And the next thing I know, I was like thrown out of that, and I was back on my couch, or on the chair. And my friend Philip was still sitting there with his eyes closed. And I went over to him because I was like, oh shit, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is he in trouble? Did I get him in trouble?
Yeah.
So
Did I just kill my friend?
yeah. So I started shaking him and he wasn't moving. And I like slapped him a couple times, nothing. So I peeled his eyes open and they were like rolling back. Dude is out. Dude is tranced out, gone.
Yeah.
And I go get my roommate and I'm like, hey, you gotta come here. Like I'm worried about him. So like we go pick him up and put him up against the wall until he'll hold his weight on his own feet. And it takes a while for him to finally like start supporting his own weight. Like he'd been drugged, and like, whew, man. So he was really mad at me for that because he's like I feel a line around my waist and it feels like I was ripped out of like a place. He's like I feel like there's a branding all the way around my waistband.
Yeah.
Like I was yanked. And he's like, don't ever like do that again. He's like, if you ever see me like that, don't rip me out like that. But anyway, that's the time I met Satan. And
That's what it is.
what's funny is like, I've studied a lot of Satanism. It's not about worshiping him.
Yeah.
It's about worshiping yourself.
Yeah.
So to ask him that was extremely naive and disrespectful. But I also think I got his attention. I don't think anyone's ever said that to him.
I mean, yeah, it sounds like clearly you got his attention.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't yeah, that makes sense as far as like why it got his attention.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't thought about it in those terms. Yeah, that's interesting, man. That's kind of intense, dude.
Yeah. So I kind of like, but how do I coincide that with like, wait, so like is Christianity is it right? Is it like, because this isn't like something you find in the Bible. This is like Catholic
Right.
devil like archetype. And here's the
Yeah.
thing. Maybe I think maybe all of these archetypes actually exist. I think your imaginary friends actually exist somewhere, but the thing is like they're not here. So
Yeah.
when you and maybe the gods aren't imaginary, I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
I think maybe it's collaborative. That's what it is.
I totally think that there's a space for, well, so something my wife and I talk a lot about, and it's something that I hope to address artistically more once I just get more of an understanding, I guess. But the idea that like our brains, we want things to be black and white. Like I want a yes or a fucking no. Is this right? Yeah. Okay. Then that's wrong. Correct. That's what I fucking want. That's what my brain wants. It's simpler. It's clean. But I don't think that's not how the real world works in general.
yeah.
So why would religion be any different? So maybe they're all fucking right, which is
Right.
a little terrifying and a little freeing.
Yep.
Because it's like, well, okay. So in other words, if they're all right, then just pick the fucking one that makes you feel good and let's move forward.
Well, there's definitely truth in all of them. Like,
Yeah,
you can
absolutely.
find, like I think I mean the Bible is some like crazy shit, man. Like I had like a lot of disdain for it as like a teenager coming out, like a late teenager, but like I have a healthy respect for scripture now, like because a lot of that text is like really vital, and not only that, but there's like this crazy coded messages in there.
Yeah.
It's like extremely complex, like Jewish number systems, like gematria. It's a whole thing. Like there's hidden number systems inside scripture, and they're still like finding it and figuring out how they did it. Crazy
I
shit.
agree. I don't, when I was younger, I'm kind of similar to you. And I definitely kind of had an aversion. I hit a point in my life that I had an aversion to just Bible. As I've gotten older, it's not the Bible that's the problem. It's the people.
Organized religion. Yep. And like I was telling you earlier that I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness. Speaking about that organization, like, because I can't speak for the Mormons or like Scientologists, but I can imagine based on I can kind of guess at how it goes. And like at least for witnesses, it's like my parents and my sister, for example, like they're all Jehovah's Witnesses, and my sister is what's called a pioneer, which means that she knocks on doors. So
okay.
it's either 50 or 70 hours a month. Like they all knock on doors, but she does it like on top of having a full-time job. So
A lot of door knocking.
So, and the thing is, they do it because they're trying to like save people's lives. They think it's like completely altruistic, at least for them. And what's sad is like they're part of an organization that has them. It's like, just imagine like if like all these people like have this message, and I guess maybe the only thing I would critique is if it was just a little bit better, like that there are just a couple of like things that like are antiquated about organized religion, organized Christianity. They need to be updated. But for the most part, like it's not the people, it's the organizations they represent.
That's a better way to put it.
Well, I mean, it's also like think about like you can expand this out to like politics, right? It's like it's not really our choice or our fault what happens.
Yeah.
We don't have a say in it, really. They tell us we do, but
That's a definitely better way to put it. Well, it makes me think of like talking about like political views. I've not met many people that when it's one-to-one, you can find zero common ground. When it's just me and a person, we may believe just drastically different, but there's always been there's somewhere in that interaction that clicks and you're like, nope, okay. This is at least one anchor point that as far off as we may go, we can come back to this one point. But when it becomes more than one, people, groups, organized elements, a lot harder to manage.
Yeah.
So I always feel a little lame of this reference, but I have used it a couple of times. The movie, which I feel lame, but I still love this fucking movie, so I don't really care that much. Men in Black. There's a scene in there where Will Smith is just getting introduced, and he's talking to Tommy Lee, and he's like, "Why don't we just tell people they can handle? People are smart." Tommy Lee's response is somewhere along the lines of, "A person is smart. A person can reasonably sit and talk, and you can connect. People, not so much." So like groups that already have these organized thoughts and these methodologies or structures, they're just harder to get to. It's just harder to communicate to a whole because there's too much nuance maybe, or
it's what they call the hive mind.
Exactly.
And it works for a colony of bees who strictly have but one thing, and that's to make the queen reproduce until the queen reproduces another queen or enough of the hive that the hive needs to split, and one of them become a queen, and they become two, and they split the hive.
Yeah.
Other than that, that is a complete hive mentality. Ants, same way.
Yeah.
It's extremely efficient, but it's not human. It's definitely there's no what we call humanity. What we recognize as humanity is not in the insect world, in the hive mind. So individualism and individual thought is what keeps humanity human.
And like this is reminding me of like a SEAL team, you know, like you have like a black op team of some kind. Like you have a small unit of maybe at most what, like I guess it depends on the operation, but like if it's a small black ops
Not
operation,
big.
it'd be like 5 people, I would imagine at most, something like that.
Right.
So it's like these people, you know, they have a leader, and it's like it's very strict, like follow the leader kind of mentality. Like basically you're putting all the decision making commands in your captain.
Yeah.
Like that's your
Right.
commanding officer. So it's like it is kind of like a hive mentality there. But what's funny about that is what makes that so dangerous is that all of those are independent thinking men that are all highly trained individually, acting
Right.
as a unit.
Right.
That's what makes people like that is what's fucking terrifying about that, right?
We have the ability to train ourselves to turn it on and off. And when you're part of being highly trained like that, it's just like with martial arts, you get muscle memory, and you get basically the memory in your brain of the function. You know, guys that come out of the military have a different mindset because, you know, it takes them a while. That's why I call it deprogramming,
Totally.
because they're very strict about when they're getting up and getting things together and doing things, because they keep you that way. So when it is time to go on a mission or complete a task, nobody questions, nobody stops and holds up. They're they're like an ant colony. Everybody marches out and does what the task that they're supposed to do as efficient as possible, and the job gets done quickly, and we go back home. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
anybody that gets in the way of that is not disciplined, and that's, you know, the machine breaks down, as they say.
And I guess like yeah, like the orders and like the commandments and directives are very clear and strict, but I guess what is actually expected is like, but you're going to maybe not find the best route, maybe that's been planned for you, but you're going to use your ingenuity as an individual to do this task to the
Right.
best of your ability, because that's why you were trained that
Well,
way.
when you have a team, you have specialists on the team that do things, and that's the idea. Your leader is the one that everybody looks to, but the leader is also the dude who understands who knows how to do what
Yeah.
and delegates. And then what you're also doing is you're putting your individual pride aside, not worrying about whether or not you could plant the explosive as good as the demolition guy when you're the marksman. You know, you just trust that he's gonna, you know, you're gonna shoot somebody from a distance, and that dude's gonna worry about blowing something up. But the leader is the one that's, you sit here and do that, you sit here and do this, and nobody questions. And, you know, it's a blend of things, and it's also pack mentality. You know, but we're mammals. You know, we can relate to a wolf pack better than we can a beehive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
A lot of elements, man. A
right?
lot of elements to come into play.
You guys seen that?
It's fascinating. You know, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Terrifying at times, but fascinating.
What a time to be alive, right? Like in all of history, like what a time to be alive right now.
What a time, man. Seeing some unique shit.
We watched the information revolution rise and fall. And
Yeah.
now all we have is the current thing revolution.
Yeah.
Revolution of the current thing. I'm not sure what it is right now, but I'll tell you what.
You know, it's
It'll be different tomorrow, so it doesn't.
right. Me and Eve were talking earlier about how like it's been a minute since because I pay attention to the news, like at least a little bit, you know, I try to stay informed. And like, you know, maybe I just been missing it. I'm that's in the realm of possibility, but I haven't really seen anything recently about Ukraine or COVID. So I was like, I was just kind of thinking, I was like, huh, when is the next divisive thing that's going to get people? Because I was like, there really hasn't been like a distraction in a couple weeks. So like
Well,
maybe we're all going to start holding the government accountable and like
right.
stop and start paying attention. And then I was like, oh wait, now Roe versus Wade has been overturned.
Yeah.
So
It's
right
been
on
recently
schedule.
going to be overturned.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even technically done.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's never happened in history. Nobody does that. That's like highly illegal. And it's just like you're saying, you know, we didn't have any distraction. Everybody started going, there's no distraction, man. Shit's really expensive. Inflation's through the roof, so gas is outrageous. And employment's kind of, everybody's quitting their jobs and shit's getting weird.
What's really sad to me about it
Right around the time we're supposed to be holding them accountable, they go, oh shit. That's not going to come out for a minute. Let's, you know, somebody needs to say something. And
Yeah.
there's your current thing.
what's really sad about it for me too is like I don't really see enough people angry at the government. Like what I see is one side, you know, and I tend to agree with this side where it's like, you know, that's not really the government's responsibility to like make decisions about what you can do with your body. That's where I
Yeah.
tend to lean on that subject. But
Yeah.
you know, there's this other side of the argument where it's like you're killing babies, and it's like, so it gets heated all of a sudden. It's like you just want to kill babies. You think babies aren't people, and like fuck
Yeah.
you. And then you have this other side that's like you want a woman who's been raped to carry to term because you're a misogynist pig, and like it's like hyperbolic.
You really want, what is the show? Handmaid's Tale. You want to live in the world of the Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
So where like what's really sad to me is like I see everyone divided, yelling at each other. Why aren't we yelling at the government? Why are we not holding them accountable? Why are we fighting each other?
One thing is, a lot of people don't understand about this in particular is that what this decision, it doesn't legalize or make anything illegal. It
Yeah.
takes the control out of federal government's hands, which is actually a very liberal move. You know, because
I mean, that sounds great to me, actually. Like,
yeah,
so it's not so the federal government has no say in the matter, basically.
right. And basically, I was saying it doesn't mean that.
Oh, but I guess that also means that a place like Texas can now.
Yeah.
Texas passed the heartbeat law, which, you know, if you got to set something up, I mean, you got to hand it to them. I'm not one to go by laws, but that's such a touchy thing and such a weird area to get into. At least they're like trying to say, okay, well, we'll make a standard and try to see both sides of it here, you know, allow it to a certain extent, but then say, you know, but nobody's ever going to be freaking happy, you know.
Well, it kind of comes down to like where you draw the line. A line has to be drawn. So.
And when the federal government draws a line across the country, people don't understand until it's a line that they want to cross.
Yeah.
They'll rant and rave about them all day long. You know, I've been bitching about them doing all kind of shit for years, and nobody gives a shit. And until they say this, and I'm like, well, for years and years, this wasn't really an issue. If the state you were in deemed it illegal, just like now with pot, if you want to tote around a bag of pot, you can't do it where I live. But if you go to another state that you can, because it's no longer federally regulated. And that's really what everybody, I think, should want to do, is get the control out of the federal government. They did not create the states created them. And they have made American people forget that.
I hate the government having power to do anything, so I think I have to agree with you.
My issue there, though, still is like, I think where it gets difficult. So I grew up Central Alabama, extremely conservative community, and I disagree with most things political that my family agrees with, and I didn't get to control where I was born. So if my state's extremely conservative, but I'm not, I guess there's the argument that I could move.
Right. I mean, I was born in Mobile.
Yeah,
Well, it
So,
might not be fair, but that actually is the argument, at least in the United States, is like if you don't like the laws in this state, it's a united congregation of states, so you can just hop to another state and like maybe they have laws you like. It's
and
like
that's really
that's not really ideal, right? But like
yeah, and I don't think it's as easy as it sounds for everybody.
yeah. No, I
Well,
mean
and,
like
well,
it's
we're
also
also
not
talking
really feasible a lot of the time. A lot of people can't do that,
right. Well, you're also
Yeah.
talking about the idea of the type of laws, because when you're talking about abortion, it has to do with the practice of it in a state. It's not like property taxes are cheaper in a different place. It's like
Right.
you can just drive across the border and do what you need to do. They're not going to arrest you when you come back because you did that. It's not that, and that's actually what it is people look at, when they look at laws, they look at what they say, this is illegal. And what they're saying is that's the act itself is not what is illegal. It's the practice of giving it as a medical practitioner, you know. And since you can't legally make a medical practice as not a medical practitioner, if you did it on your own, it's still illegal. So you have to go where it's considered a medical practice everywhere. So you have to have somebody go into medical practice to do it for it to not be an illegal procedure, you know. And
I've seen Dirty Dancing.
right. So, and then that's one of the big things that a lot of people that support it are about, because they're afraid that if it's illegal, then it becomes filthy. People got to go in a back alley and do it. And, it's really there's a whole lot of nuance that goes into things, because
There is.
anytime you throw accountability in either direction, it can so easily be thrown back
Yeah, for sure.
either way.
And
And it's one of
yeah,
those touchy things. It's such an odd situation. It's not like drug use.
I don't really know where I don't know. I don't know because I don't want the government to have a say in anything. But like in this subject, it's saying you have rights, right? It's saying you can do this. It's not saying you can't do something.
It's
yeah,
it's yeah, it's saying that basically basically the law stated, Roe versus Wade, I believe, stated that you couldn't make it illegal. I think that
that's
federally.
my understanding. Yeah,
And so by overturning it, a lot of people feel like, and it will, a lot of states obviously will, change, go by their self-written laws, just like they did with pot laws. But it's going to be real interesting state to state,
it
because
will.
especially here in Tennessee, our capital is a Democratic city.
Yeah,
Nashville has never had a Republican mayor ever in its
it's a
history.
weird state. Yeah,
And it's always been a red state.
yeah.
But we are a blue. Nashville's a blue city, and it's so
Right.
here. I can already, feel the ground rumbling that they're going to be going off down at the Capitol.
Probably.
Yeah, because that's just kind of, and that happens in different places for different issues because of different things. You're not going to see the same kind of reaction in certain other states because they're not states that are going to start banning it, or have to worry about that. So,
It's tricky because you get into states that are extremely well. I say extreme. I don't necessarily love using extreme words. But you get states that are like, okay, it's illegal to do it here, and if we find out you go to another state, then we want to be able to
Mm,
do something about that.
mm.
well, I
I
think
don't know how many of them have actually like
well, what
pursued that,
happened?
but that's
Well,
the
that's the
fear.
thing. Is the only way you could do that is federally, because once you cross a state line, if you're committing a crime, it's a state crime for the most part. Say, that's what makes smuggling different than standard trafficking. If you have illicit contraband, anything that is controlled and you aren't licensed to possess, and you are traveling with it, that becomes a different type of charge.
Yeah.
You're transporting it, you're moving it. So that's what trafficking really means. When you cross a state line, it becomes interstate trafficking, and it becomes a federal case then, meaning it's out of the state's hands and the FBI comes and deals with you. So what you're looking at is states cannot do that. They would have to get the federal government involved. If the federal government doesn't have the power, there's nothing you can do. What other people worry about is then you got to worry about extradition. Across the United States, you break a
Yeah.
law in one state, you get extradited pretty easily.
Yeah.
If you leave the country, a lot of other countries will extradite you back to the US, but certain
Right.
ones don't for
Don't,
certain
yeah.
laws.
Mhm.
So people worry about that. If the federal government didn't have any power, you could do something in one state that the other state refuses to extradite people for and drive right across the county, much like Europe.
Yeah.
Basically it's supposed to be set up like Europe as states, but we elected a federal government or got tricked into building a federal government.
I think I'm actually okay with the government enforcing freedom. I think that's
It's
I like it when they
it's
destroy
interesting.
their own power. I've got no problem with them going, we don't have control over this anymore. We don't have a say in this anymore.
Yeah.
it's tricky.
there's
It's
something
tricky.
for it. It's super tricky.
Mhm.
Super tricky.
Be tricky.
It doesn't help that I'm a male and
I guess
don't really have to worry that much about it.
I guess the problem is, I guess I also have a problem with state governments and how they run things.
But
like
that'd be my thought too. Is like it is great that the federal government's like, okay, we're
Right.
just whatever. But you're just handing it down
yeah,
to another government system that now is telling me what I can and can't do.
it really it's not like it really puts power in the hands of the individual. I guess
Well,
it
the idea
does
is
as far as election goes, as far as like you can elect someone.
people tend to trust the state elections. I definitely don't trust the national election.
That's a good
As far
point.
as the state election, I could see how that would be a little more easily to pull off and not be so easy to.
Well, I mean,
manipulate.
like we just have an illusion of choice anyway. It's not like
Right.
it's
And
not
that's
like
the
our
thing.
fucking yeah.
Most people don't pay that much attention to policy when they vote. They're voting for their team.
Yeah. I've been that person.
Right.
Still am in some ways. So yeah, totally. It's a lot.
I've been
Okay,
rooting for my wingless team for a long, long time. My team of, there's no government like no government.
There's nothing to say for it, that's for sure.
It's always funny to me when someone is like an activist, but they're advocating for more government regulation. Like you're not an activist. You're not an activist if you're advocating that more power be taken out of the hands of individuals.
And what you gotta understand is a lot of these laws, especially with the abortion law, what begins to be fought is where government funding is going. Because
Yes.
my stance on it is it's very down the middle, but actually around the backside because it's very kind of cold. My thing is not only do, to me, if you want to debate scientifically if it's a life or not, and when a conception is, that's irrelevant to me because
Yeah.
what is relevant to me is its value to me.
Right.
And I see all life as having value, including the plant life. And I don't eat much meat. I eat fish, right? But I still see plant life to be life, and I'll still consume it. So if that has value to me, value has relative meaning. I'm not going to eat a human. So they don't have that they got more value to me. my own child has even greater value to me than any other human. So if it's not mine, it's not my seed, then it's not really my concern. You know, it's not my burden to bear. That's somebody else's burden to bear. There's somebody else's moral dilemma if they want to. I don't need to cry myself to sleep at night because of this happening.
But Neef, that's not fair.
So, well, welcome to the tundra.
Oh,
But also, what a lot of people overlook is where the government plays the role in distributing our tax money, which is stolen from us as far as I'm concerned. So to steal my money and then use it in ways that I don't like bombing other nations, is a slap in my face. So not only, we're put into such a dilemma, and especially, with, being a man who's, I'm a man, so I'm considered not necessarily have an opinion on this. Yet it takes me to create that. So if
Yeah.
it is mine, then for me to not have any say is kind of like, all right, if you want to be that cold with it, that's fine. But let's back it up to the my body, my choice. Well, my body equals the labor that I create, that creates the capital. So therefore, my capital is part of my body. So my capital should be my choice. So to take my tax dollars that have been stolen from me and raise a seed that is not mine, or to kill a seed that is not mine, there is no place for that.
well, let's use another example, right? Because maybe this one's a little hot button. Here's another
I don't have any
you
say, then I shouldn't have any pay.
well, I'm just let me take it here. Prison. I shouldn't have to pay for
Well,
a
that's a whole other
rapist.
thing.
I am offended if it's a slap in my face, just like you were saying, if that like I have to my tax dollars go to rapists and murderers' survival.
Yep.
Like I'm paying for them to eat.
Paying for their education too.
Yeah, I don't why am I doing that?
But
I
well, you
don't
don't have a choice.
I don't consent to that.
It's so you don't have to join them for evading taxes, Alex.
They make too much money for the state, that's why.
You get into a lot of, it's like there's a lot of conversation there because
Yeah.
ideally speaking, prison is a reformative institution that if I go into prison, I will have learned my lesson and I will remorse and repent and I'll come out a better person.
In a perfect world, right?
Yeah, but that's not what fucking happens.
With a real estate license.
Well,
Oh,
people come out of prison and they can't get jobs because they're felons. And it's not reform. It's not reform.
Well, it makes sense, right? It's simple capitalism. That's just called repeat business.
Yeah. It's just, and it's not what it's painted to be as a reform. And we're gonna put these people in here. They're gonna pay their debts to society, and they're gonna come out better people. They're not gonna do it again for sure, and they're gonna contribute in a way they never thought they'd ever fucking be able to do. And that's not what happens. They go in. It's a monster of a thing. They come out. A lot of them go right the fuck back in. The ones that don't struggle. And so,
well, I've known people that have been in and out in both ways, and I know guys that are completely successful, extremely successful coming out of the pen.
It's true too.
But
there's some, yeah, no doubt.
But the main thing is that institutions are institutions, and most of our prisons are private, so they profit. So they do not want people out of there. They want people in because they make money from the federal government
Well, yeah,
that pays them to have house people. So if you don't have any prisoners, you're not making any money. And the
yeah,
problem is our government turns itself into a business and acts like it's a business to make money. And
yeah,
if we pull the ism in capital, that's what I always say. The problem with capitalism is the ism.
yeah,
And if we pulled money out of government, we'd have no problem. If we
yeah.
want to have minimum wage, everybody who works for the government should make minimum wage and no more.
Man,
I agree with you
I'll,
there. The
I'll
president should
never,
make
Yeah,
whatever the minimum wage of Washington D.C. is.
yeah,
well,
you should.
I'll never remember the comedian I heard this from, but it was a comedian that had talked just about that. He was like, man, if you're going to be a politician, your job is to serve the people. So you should make, if you're a congressperson for, I don't know, Mississippi, minimum fucking wage, bro, because you're here to help the people. Because that's why
Yeah,
you came into it. Because
yeah.
you're so pious
But
and
when
you're
you,
so righteous. You don't care about the money. So
but
minimum
wait,
wage, motherfucker. Wear those Walmart rags, and you go your ass to Congress and you vote and you write policy and you make your state more affordable.
If we're going to
uh,
have public housing, the first people to be put in public housing should be government employees.
Boom.
and
I
since
totally agree.
this is the real world, Alice, since it's Gotham, what really happens is like, maybe there is that person with the good intentions. Like, I'm gonna fix it. Like, and then it's like
We all know that's me.
yeah, it's like, I will take the government housing and I will take minimum wage. I am a servant to the people. And then it's like, then big pharma knocks on your door. And
So much.
they're like, hey, I've got $3 trillion for you if you'll lobby
And I'll hand it to
this
you.
way.
Yeah, I'll legally hand it to you.
Yeah.
And if you're
It's all
like,
good.
no, I would never betray my virtues for no amount of money. They're like, okay, what if I just kill your children
No, then you go on
in front of you?
Then you go on one of those hunting trips where something happens, or
Yeah,
you
yeah. Well, it's always an accident.
plane that you're like, why is nobody else on this plane?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Where did the rest of the passengers go?
is it weird?
It's
Not a full.
Some tragic incident. Oh my God, we can't believe this happened. I mean, he's such a good man, such good morals. It never happens to. It only happens to the good ones.
Classic
Yeah, that
Black
shit
Swan.
only happens to the good ones.
He was such a good man.
yeah.
He was a good church-going man, as I've heard so many times.
It's such a loss. He was really here for the community. Well, no shit, that's why he was lost. They offed his ass.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
they
We
killed
are an optimistic bunch.
you guys, I think Neef and I've talked about it, but you guys know about Kennedy's last speech, the last speech he ever gave.
Hmm.
He talks about how there are agencies within our government that have nefarious intentions that are not the best for this country, and they've infiltrated, and they're powerful, and they're in all legs of the government. And he gave this speech about it, and then he's like, I'm going to talk about this more going forward. Like,
Planned on disbanding like the CIA. He planned on just trying to root out everything. You know,
I'll get you taken care of.
but they didn't kill him in his bed at home.
no,
They
No,
killed him
poor brazen.
they killed him in a fucking parade
yeah,
next
they
to his
didn't.
wife on
No,
public television,
it-
live in front of
they
everyone.
made sure it was not looked at like this was an accident because he did
No.
not subtly come out and do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
He wide open came out and did something, so they wide open came out and responded.
Like, they were kind of like, game on, bro.
Since
they're like,
Kennedy,
Let's do this.
our government doesn't even, like, here's the thing. Here's the thing.
Look
They
at it
could take
now.
out anyone in the world quietly if they wanted to, but they don't fucking have to. They killed Kennedy on live television next to his wife in a parade full of people. They don't,
Yeah.
they're
Scary
not
thing.
afraid of being discreet. They don't
Right.
fucking care.
Yeah.
In fact, it's more than not caring. They made a message.
Yeah, no, they
Yeah.
cared enough to send the very best.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fellas, I'm gonna take a quick restroom break. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'll pause the recording for Neef so he doesn't have to. All right, we're back. Hey, Alex, we had a little pee break. We're back now. We were talking about, you know, what it means to be a chef and like to run a kitchen versus what it is to be a cook, and how that relates to Fela Kuti and how he ran his band.
Yeah, there was a little jump in the topic there.
Yeah, I don't remember what we were talking about before, but
Oh shit. Yeah, we did.
Politics, but I was getting off on my anarchist rants as I do.
Yeah.
So it's better when I start talking about another great anarchist, Fela Kuti.
I'm here for it, man.
What so we talked about your non-musical inspirations. Who'd you listen to growing up? Who were your parents into?
Oh fuck, dude. So sorry, that came out really harsh. I didn't mean.
No, you're good.
So is it okay if I tell a few little tiny stories through all this?
Absolutely.
But feel free, my man.
So
Take us down a rabbit hole.
I will do my best. When I think about music growing up, like I know my dad loved country music, and he also loved funk music and like Detroit Motown. My mom loved the Beatles and Rolling Stones. And having said all that, I don't, you know, we didn't necessarily like sit down in the basement and just roll through albums. There are like a handful of vivid memories with specific albums as a young child. So I can list those for you. Thriller, the Miami Vice soundtrack, which gets more funny and surreal the older I get, that's like a vivid musical memory for me, but it is. And Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings, particularly Pancho and Lefty. I probably listened to that song several hundred times as a kid. That was a young age, and I don't think I understood my connection to music at the time. I knew it talked to me, you know, like I knew that there was feeling that I connected with, but I didn't think about it as something I could ever do. It just moved me around. As the years went on, I ended up getting in a little more into like what was modern country, which was a little lame looking back on it. But you know, I liked it. I got into some R&B, loved my ass some Boys to Men, and listened to some Dwight Yoakam and some Alan Jackson.
Hell yeah.
And then somewhere, I would guess around puberty, which kind of makes sense, a little anger started coming through, and started getting into a little more rock. Now, it was baby steps, mind you. So, you know, went from like Alan Jackson and Garth Brooks and Dunn to like Matchbox 20 and thinking like, oh shit, these guys are killing it. Yeah. Aggression. Yes.
That was so funny.
And then I think I should also probably preface a little, if it isn't known to people now yet, that growing up in a small town means that you're a little ways behind on what's modern and cool musically a lot of times. So for instance, Sublime, had their just massive run in the mid-late 90s, where it just took the world by storm. My hometown was about a year after that. So I was a little behind everything. The grunge movement just crushed it in the early 90s. I didn't listen to grunge till the mid 90s.
Okay.
So everything I'm telling you is a couple of years behind the modern timeline. Or I guess not modern, the accepted timeline maybe is a better way to put it. So anyway, got into Matchbox 20, got into like Creed.
Back then, music didn't distribute around the country the way it does now, Alice.
That's very true. Very good point.
Older heads,
It took a minute.
Even here in Nashville, we had to search certain record shops to find even the underground alternative and even the grunge stuff, that area in that time. It wasn't at a click
accessible.
It wasn't sitting on your telephone, Alice.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, like you couldn't go to your phone and be like, hey, what's the top hit today? Like, no, man. In Clanton, Alabama, Birmingham was the biggest city, and it wasn't very big back then. So, you got what you got. But after, kind of just years of progression, and I kind of always remember as a kid loving music, but also feeling unsatisfied by a lot of it. And it wasn't until like my mid-teens that I discovered like Metallica and Beastie Boys and some of those just more aggressive.
Favorite Beastie Boys album?
Oh shit, dude! Why would you do that to me? So if you ask me, my favorite Beastie Boys album at like age 20 would have been License to Ill.
All right.
Favorite one now would be Paul's Boutique.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just,
yeah.
I still listen to it. Even when I listen to it now, I hear things and I'm like, fuck, those dudes.
Yeah.
Those dudes, man.
I used to drop LSD and listen to Paul's Boutique and Check Your Head.
Man. What's your do you have a favorite track from Paul's Boutique?
Oh man.
That's tough. I know.
Yeah, he threw one back at you.
The way they did their records, and especially those two, you listen to them front to back, and so few people do that anymore. And I really love music out of the 70s and the 60s, so there was a lot of that going on.
Oh yeah.
And in the 90s, we started. In the 80s, we lost a lot of that because of hits. The 90s, some bands would kind of touch on that sometimes.
They did. Totally.
Get back into that a little bit, and
totally.
Flaming Lips was like that.
Yeah. Love the Flaming Lips. Promise had a handful of albums like that. I felt like that just really,
psychedelic.
Sailing the Seas of Cheese, man, that album's immaculate to me.
So you got these full records, so it's so hard to say, my favorite track, because
totally. Oh, I get that. Yeah, totally get that.
We still had cassette tapes then, Alice. We'd put it on, and you weren't able to just hit the button and go back. CDs were kind of new.
Hell yeah, man! No, you were in it for the long haul at that point.
You pissed at your CD because it'd want to skip, and even if your tape was fucked up, it'd still go through the fucked up spot.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress.
So yeah, I guess I think it's
okay. So from
my music inspiration.
Yeah, so from Metallica to Beastie Boys, where do we go from here?
Ventured from there into more grunge. Oddly, right? You would think Metallica would have come after grunge for some reason, but the Black Album, Enter Sandman, that hit for me. I heard that first, and like, oh shit, that's awesome. And then got into like grunge. Pearl Jam in particular I feel like grunge is one of those eras that everybody has a favorite, and arguably any of them is the best. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't even matter. For me,
but because I have a favorite, I think mine's the best. So
absolutely, and rightly so.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, you know? That's the beauty. Pearl Jam was my favorite. Versus hit me at a time in my life that I had really started to understand that the world was not nice in a lot of ways, and that I did not adapt, that the world was not built for me.
Hmm.
So I don't know if people watching, I don't know if you're even aware, I have a physical disability. I've got CP, cerebral palsy. So when I heard Verses for the first time, I was about 13, and I had a lot of anger, and I had a lot of confusion and frustration that stemmed off of my physical limitations. And that album, like, it touched those core elements. And I remember thinking, like, this is okay. There's something strong to this. So Pearl Jam quickly became my favorite band at the time, and they still remain one of my favorites. They'll probably always be that way for me. But got into them heavy, got into Outkast because they were just so irreverent and unapologetic lyrically.
All right.
Well, yeah, like catchy as shit, but so weird and so unapologetic
Hmm.
and fearless. So that got me through high school. Radiohead, I picked them up around, junior, senior year. Jethro Tull, I picked up around junior, senior year.
Yeah.
Aqualung, man, still one of my favorite albums. Just too fucking good for its own. It's just too good. Too many.
On a Jethro Tull note, how deep down the Jethro Tull rabbit hole have you gone?
Not as far as I should have. I'm gonna be honest with you. Aqualung's my most familiar. I've dabbled around. I'm, almost a little embarrassed to say I have not
They're
cranked into it.
they're a band much like, say, Rush, where unless they're a band that you really like and really know on that certain level, that you're not
Yeah.
expected to know a lot. And I like Rush, but I'm not a Rush fan. Like Rush fans, I know. As far as Tull goes, I'm a deep early Tull fan, like I am with most bands. I like a
Okay.
lot of early stuff for every band.
Yeah,
that I
man.
like. But I'm very astute when it comes to Jethro Tull and Ian Anderson.
I
They're one of my hugest influences musically.
having and this is very spur of the moment, but now that we're talking about it, I haven't thought about Jethro Tull in a little bit, and now I'm like, man, that's the beauty of access, is now I actually do have access to all their albums.
Yeah.
It's so easy to go listen to.
Mhm.
And I just hadn't thought about that in a while, a fucking long while now.
Actually,
so
if you
that
don't
might
mind,
be something I do tomorrow.
if you don't mind, that's actually like I'd like to segue into like that makes me think about like there's kind of like this. There is so much more access now, but there's more distractions too. So
So much more. Yeah.
it's harder for kids in this generation to pick up a craft, to learn a discipline, because there are so many distractions.
Yeah.
Now, the ones that are capable of doing that, they have so much more access, though. They have so much more capability than ever before.
It's the double-sided thing, like, yeah, it is. There's a lot of distraction, fucking lot of distraction, man.
That's why I trap people in a chair and make them listen to great music.
Like Clockwork Orange style.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for Clockwork Oranging me, Neef. Appreciate it.
Like, no, keep your eyes open. The whole thing.
I'm trying.
So Neef,
Mhm.
in a further response to the Jethro Tull, I have not delved into them. I am the Rush fan. my album I put out, I mean, it is a tribute to Rush in that the first half of the album is one full story. The second half is quasi-related.
Mm.
And like Hemispheres and
Mhm.
several of those early albums of Rush's that had that first half was just one massive work of ridiculous prodigal talent. And then the
Oh,
rest of it was equally good, but it you know, it wasn't necessarily part of that story.
well, speaking of massive, long single tracks, have you ever heard "Thick as a Brick" by Jethro Tull?
Thick as a brick. I don't think I've listened to it, but
"Thick
you
as
know
a
what?
Brick" is one record. The whole
I'm fixing to
song
reach over.
is the entire record,
Wow.
and it's a poem. The whole thing is it's a massive poem,
Thick as a
and
brick. Is that the name of the album? I'm assuming as well.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
it's the
I'm writing
whole.
it down.
There's a story on the album cover, like a newspaper, that talks about this little boy who won a
Okay.
poetry contest, and it became a scandal that he wrote it or they don't know, and it's like this silly made up thing that they did for their album cover, but it's based off of what that poem, like the kid wrote the song.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Oh
and yeah,
shit, that's awesome.
and
That's
kind of
awesome.
play on what the song speaks of when it talks about, it's a brilliant song. It's one of those ones that'll have you, it's something that you hand your 14-year-old and you say, look, boy, go put headphones on and listen to every
Yeah,
word that this album says.
trust me on this. Yeah, I will check that out, man. Thank you for the recommendation.
Great album.
Yeah, that I'm very happy that Jethro Tull has come up because I just really hadn't listened to him in a minute, and it was before I had like streaming music. When I did, I
It
just haven't listened to it.
What's great about "Thick as a Brick" is very lyrical. It's very, you're really into that. Their movement is very symphonic in it. It's got a lot of great movement, but it's not as jazz intense as their very early stuff that I'm
Okay,
really into. And their early stuff is very jazz intense,
yeah,
which is why it didn't get big. But it's very blues rock, like most of the '60s British stuff was.
yeah, totally.
Uh, which I'm a huge fan of, and a big influence in my life is in my music is a lot of English psychedelic blues.
Absolutely. I will check that out for sure.
It's kind of funny because I was thinking earlier there was something that I was going to bring up for a album that I was going to recommend to Alice as we were talking about something that it brought up, and I was going to bring it up, but whatever.
We went from Beastie Boys and then Jethro Tull and Rush. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
This was,
can't not mention Tool because
Yeah.
they're a massive influence for me.
Yeah.
Seen
Yeah.
them
That was
twice.
one of the
and,
big ones, Crack My Egg too. Even though there's
they,
way better ones, right? Like,
yeah, they
you have a
they
favorite?
really opened me up. Not everybody though, like I totally appreciate people that are like, yeah, I don't know, I get it, but for me, they moved the needle well beyond the red. Still do.
yeah.
I saw them play when they were a side stage man at Lollapalooza in
Oh
1993.
shit! Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
and me and like my buddies are probably the only people in town that even listen to them. That was right before Undertow even got put out.
Oh shit! So you saw
Yeah,
him for like Opiate,
yeah,
basically. Oh
yeah.
god, I
I,
saw him
I,
twice on the Lateralis tour, and it was amazing. I mean, they put on a hell of a show.
I'm at the GEC here. I'm not even sure what tour it was, and it was really good. But it was such a distant show that and I'm very burnt out on going to arena type shows and shows like
Yeah.
that.
Same here. Last arena show I went to, it was Metallica, and it was really only because my wife had never seen them. We went to Metallica, the last Nashville show they had, we went. But before that, it had been, I went to see I guess, I mean, I saw Rush on their last tour through Nashville, and I saw Elton John.
Nice.
But yeah, the arena, I'm not into that vibe as much as I used to be.
It makes, it makes great artists seem like you're watching a prefabricated act that you just watch on MTV.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw Queens of the Stone Age play at Municipal here.
Ooh,
Nice.
nice.
A floor show, like they weren't on the floor, but everybody was on the floor, and it wasn't very packed. I mean, it was filled up, but it just seemed kind of mellow.
Yeah.
And it was like, it almost was like not being at the Municipal. It was like we're in some weird club that was kind of big,
That's cool.
and it was one of the best shows I've seen there because it was that level. And I've actually seen them there years earlier playing with 9 Inch Nails. I think they opened for them on Halloween.
Wow.
And
Wow.
That's a hell of a show to see.
Yeah.
Shit.
It was the Geck I saw them at doing that. And that was, that's an arena. The Geck, which is now Bridgestone.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's still
And-
badass.
And it was a good show, but I was up in the seats. So it wasn't like standing there like, and I'm so used to that because I ran thousands of those kind of shows,
Yeah.
And so-
Garrett, how do you think human life came to be?
Came to be?
Yeah, like
Oh, fuck, dude.
we're kind of different from like other animals,
Oh, man. So, okay, hold on. Let me clarify a little here. Do you mean like evolutionarily speaking, like Earth has already created, man came from this, or you're
I don't
leaving it
know.
open.
What do you
Oh,
think?
How did we end up cast out onto the cold tundra?
I was there on the
Uh,
first day screaming it. How's it going?
Well,
I know if I fuck it up, you'll like crucify me. So how's it go?
my first thought is that we are only really a thought of something so massive we can't comprehend it. So like we feel like this is all real because this is our perspective. But really, just as a thought in our brain is fired from a neuron, we are equally spontaneously fired from a much larger neuron in a much larger thing that will flame out as quickly as it came.
Kind of like the solar system is an atom, and the sun is the nucleus, and we're all spinning on a big electron, but we're all
Pretty much.
electrons spinning on
Pretty
electrons,
much.
or just vibrations, and everything is really just a vibration at a certain frequency, whether it's matter or just energy, which are one and the same. So consciousness and existence in the universe are just one and the same. Is that what you're saying?
Spot on.
Nice.
Groovy.
Groovy.
I mean, I think, I believe in, if we're looking more, more surface level, I believe in evolution. I don't believe in Adam and Eve. Personally, I don't.
What? I'm just kidding.
I'm sure there's having said that and kind of referencing back to the beginning of this conversation, I don't fucking know that. And maybe for all I know, that, shit, man, maybe you have to assume there had to have been some form of Adam and Eve.
I know a girl named Eve.
I know many Adams.
Yeah, actually.
So there we go. Problem solved.
There we go.
Mystery cleared.
Yeah. I guess do you think it was like a natural evolution, or do you think there's some kind of missing link that could be explained, or what do you think? I'm sorry, and no one knows, right?
No, I got you. No, I mean, I think that there probably wasn't a natural evolution.
Something happened.
I believe that most likely
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of where I don't mean to lead you, but that's kind of where I'm at on it.
No, man. I think it's the evolution, dude.
The white rabbit is leading the guest.
Here's my hammer
no,
at. Hold on a
I
second.
think
Where's
the
the hand?
environment.
Order in the court. Stop leading the witness.
You have a legit mallet. That's awesome. No, I think that I believe in evolution. When we're talking about more like, okay, my first answer was obviously outside of our realm of like perception. So if we're talking more about like what we can see and study and follow, I believe in evolution. I don't believe that we just appeared one day out of nothing. I think that we were microcosms. Is that the right word? Maybe not. Doesn't matter. I think we were tiny, and we evolved to one level, and the environment changed, and we evolved to another level, and the environment changed.
Evolved.
And that continued until here we are.
Right. That's as feasible as most, more feasible than a lot of stuff I hear.
I think my general belief is that like miracles are real. And I'm not a person that's like, no, that fucking didn't happen. I'm not that. I do think that many things are not as great as we think that we want them to be. And they're also not as bad. So I think that goes both ways. And I think that goes across the board in a lot of ways of like, we want to believe that we're these super special things and that we're so unique and so just special. And we're not in a lot of ways, but we are in some ways. I got to see Neil deGrasse Tyson speak one time, and somebody asked him about his belief in God and that sort of thing. And they also ask of like, do you think that the idea that there are just thousands of universes and galaxies that are the exact same as us, does that make us less special? And his response was great. And I'll never get it, by like verbatim. But what I took from it was we are not special in the way that we want to imagine we're special. We want this belief that we are so unique and so different in a certain way. And the reality is that we, in the way that we want to be so special and unique, we're really just molecules that happen to collaborate at a certain time, in a certain place, in a certain way. Having said that, we are here. And a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a second of an inch, millimeter difference changes anything ever happening. So we are uniquely special, but also not. And you can be both. Sure.
Yeah. It's like, we're probably not alone in the universe, like intelligently. We just haven't. Well, I guess that's my next question. Do you think there's extraterrestrial life, and do you think they've interacted with Earth?
I do think there's I absolutely think there's other intelligence out there. I mean, I feel like they probably have at least attempted to interact. My head goes in a lot of different directions. I'm a bit of a believer in the multiverse. So the idea that aliens traveled here from Mars and are watching us, I don't think that's likely. Is there a form of being that is able to interact with parallel dimensions that we aren't aware of, or, you know, able to perceive. At least not many of us. I think that's possible.
Yeah.
I totally think that's possible. And you know, and having said that, I'm not even saying I don't believe that it's possible that there's actual physical alien life here. I wouldn't deny that even, because I think I've seen too many things, even in this short life of mine, that that kind of blew my mind in the moment. That like, yeah, you know what? I don't fucking know anything, dude. I am the most clueless, you know, hairy son of a bitch out here, and there's no telling.
What was one of those occurrences? Do you have anything supernatural you can't explain?
I've got a couple of stories for you. Now, I will say that this happened to be, I watched an earlier episode and I was a little bit prepared for something of this nature to come up. So I've got two stories if you're ready for them.
He did his homework, Alice. Take us home, Garrett.
Okay. So one story is my actual experience, like it was me. And then one is a very close person to me that I trust wholly, because historically they have never, ever been someone that believes in supernatural or just weird things. So I'll start with mine because I feel like mine's less profound. So I ran a homeless shelter for about, how was it? I think 5.5 years in a nonprofit. And it was two group homes. There was a male and a female group home. And we specifically were for homeless individuals that also had major mental health issues. So like schizophrenia or something like that. Now, the homes that these people stayed in, one of them was fairly modern. I think it had been built in like the 80s, you know, nothing special. The other, however, the men's house, was early 1900s. It's a historical spot in Nashville. So, as most people probably know at this point, when you're working in the mental health field, medication is just a normal thing. So part of my duties as running this facility was counting medication, going in, making sure people weren't taking more or less than they were supposed to. I had to do it during the day when the residents were kind of out doing their thing and I was alone in the house. For obvious security reasons, I needed to be able to like have a medication drawer open with no interruption. So one day, doing my med check, this place was a 2-story building. You knew it was old school because when you opened the front door, you could see straight through the house. Like you could see to the back end of the house. So I can't, there's a word for it. I know those older houses, they all had those kind of like breezeways. So it was a way to help air condition when there wasn't air conditioning. So I'm in the back of this house. And doors are locked. No one is able to come in or out without a key. There was 2 exits on the first floor, a front and a back, and there was 1 exit on the second floor, a back exit. So I'm counting, I'm here doing my medication, counting it, you know, going through the shit. And I hear something above me. And my first thought was like, okay, it's an old house, there's creaks, you know, that sort of thing. Okay. But then I heard it again, and I started really just kind of like, I stopped what I was doing and listened, and it sounded like footsteps. I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, all right. Kind of waited for a minute. It stopped. I'm like, okay. Something we had to watch out for in our homes were people not wanting to leave during the day. It was pretty common. People didn't like having to leave. They wanted to be able to stay home, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So my first thought is like, shit, one of the residents has slipped our staff, and they don't, they were able to evade being pushed out of the house basically, and have just had the day, and they don't realize I'm here, so they're just moving around. So I'm like, okay, well, let me just sit for a second and just kind of wait, right? Well, I hear it again, and then I hear a door shut above me. I'm like, motherfucker. And at this point, I'm kind of angry because I'm like, one of these residents, man, one of these dudes has like been a jackass and dodged my staff that stays overnight until everyone's gone. He has managed to evade them, and he is just here. So I'm like, okay, all right, here we go. So I throw all the medication back in the drawer. I lock it up. I get my bag. I get everything I need to walk out the house. And I'm like, all right, bottom floor is secure. Doors are locked. Double check. Yep. All right. Make my way upstairs. Open the door to the hallway. Fucking nothing. Like, all right, cool. Well, there's like 4 bedrooms, and they all have swinging doors that like shut automatically. So systematically, I'm opening doors. There's nobody. Fucking nobody. I'm like, okay. I kind of know those were footsteps, man. Like, this was not like creaks in the boarding. No, this was like pat, 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 door, bam. What the fuck is going on? I get to the upstairs exit, and there's no one there. So I legit get freaked out. Walk out, go to my car, go straight to my boss. And she's in a separate building. So I go to her office, or I kind of find her on the way. And I'm like, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? She's like, yeah, what's going on? I'm like, I just need a minute. So we go in her office, and she's like, dude, what's up? I was like, okay. So I give her the rundown, and she's just kind of looking at me grinning like, yeah, nothing is shocking her. Like, everything I'm telling her, she's just like, yeah, okay. And I get through, and she's just kind of looking at me, and I'm like, has anything like this happened before? And she just kind of grinned a little bigger. It's like, well, yeah. I'm like, okay, what? So she's like, well, do you know this counselor? And it was a counselor that was an overnight guy. He had been there for years, and I did know him. He was still with him. I'm like, yeah, I know him. His name was Marshall. I'm like, yeah, I know Marshall. Yeah, what the fuck about Marshall? She's like, well, he's had a little bit of an incident. And I'm like, okay, what kind of incident? And she's like, well, he was working overnight. It was about 3, 4 in the morning. All the residents were asleep. He heard the door upstairs to the hallway open and shut. He went to kind of the little breezeway where you could see from back to front. And that's where the stairs came down. And he saw a dude. Now it's dark, so he just sees like a silhouette type thing. But even in the moment, apparently, he kind of was looking at it, and it looked like dude had on like old school army fatigues, not like Vietnam, like fucking Civil War situation. But he didn't, it was dark. And he was like, that's weird. But he saw a silhouette, and he's like, hey, what are you doing up? Dude looked at him, turned around, went back upstairs. So he double checked his area to kind of make sure doors and stuff were shut, like chased the dude upstairs. And by the time he got upstairs, no one awake, no doors open, nothing.
Wow.
And I'm like, motherfucker. I think I told her, I right there, I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be in that house alone for at least a few weeks. Like, I'm legit freaked out. And this is more than I'm prepared to deal with. And she was understanding. That's story number 1. Are we still good for story number 2?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So very close person of mine. Very logical person. Right? So like logically, I'm looking for answers at all times type person.
Mhm.
Well, she lived in Alabama where I grew up. Her father was older, lived in Louisiana. They were close. Their relationship had been tumultuous, you could say. But over the several years leading up to that, it'd been really good. They stayed close, talked a lot, that sort of thing. His health was bad. Like they knew he had heart issues. He had smoked fucking 50, 60 years, like just a lot, just physically a lot. So they knew he wasn't doing great, but he had been living on his own and doing good for a while. She went to bed one night. She had a dream, and in this dream, she walks up to a house, walks in. It's a big party looking situation. Doesn't recognize most of the people. She does recognize one. It's her mother-in-law, who had died a few years earlier, across the room from her, and is walking, starts to approach her, which is like, oh, all right, dream wise, you're like, okay, all right, nothing, okay. Starts interacting with her mother-in-law, who they had not had a good relationship. Like they did not like each other, did not get along. It was just not a good relationship. But in this dream, mother-in-law was very nice and super empathetic, and kind of made weird statements of like everything's all right. Those kind of like classic dream statements that you see in the fucking movies of like, it's everything's fine and don't worry, it's safe. And she, my friend is logical and is like, okay, all right. Well, during that, she notices this person in the back of the room, this man, and half of his face is like deep red, like maroon red, and half is just like albino white. Creeps her the fuck out. And this person seems to be coming towards her or trying to communicate, and she freaks out. And in the dream, her mother-in-law is still just like, it's fine. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. It's fine. But she bails. My friend's in her dream. She bails the room, leaves. Wakes up. It's like 3 a.m. or something. She gets a phone call. And it's her sister. And they're like, actually, it may have been more like, honestly, I'm thinking it may have been more like 7 or 8 in the morning, but it's her sister. Her sister's like, hey, dad's gone. She's like, okay, well, okay. So, you kind of snap back into reality, go back to taking care of life and doing the shit that needs to get done. So she goes to Louisiana, gets to the hospital not hospital, wherever his body's at. She gets there and meets her sister, who she had talked to, and her brother. And they're just kind of updating, like briefing basically of like what's going on. And they're like, what, this is what happened, this is what's going on. And as they're telling my friend what happened, they're like, so, they think he had a heart attack. He lived in a trailer, so they're like, they found him in the bathroom. They think he maybe had a heart attack while he was like getting ready for bed or whatever. But he fell. He hit the side of his face on the tub, and that's how they found him. And so when they found him, half of his face, all the blood had settled. The other half was very, very pale.
Wow.
And she didn't tell them about her dream until about a week later. And apparently it freaked them the fuck out.
Wow.
Like apparently when she told them, they were like, and they just didn't really have a response.
Yeah, what do you say?
Yeah, what the fuck do you say? Like clearly he was trying like that. That's like for me, as my personal experience, that's the most undisputable argument for something beyond what we can perceive on a normal basis. Because my friend would not lie to me about that. I know I've known her too long, and she's too logical, and it freaked her out. Like you could just it. I hate to say freaked her out because it didn't freak her out. You know, she was okay with it, but
Maybe dazed her, kind of stunned her, maybe.
it I think it gave her, well, I mean, I think before that, I think she might have been somebody that was like, oh, this is some bullshit, but it happened to her. And so I think she was in that place of like,
Gotcha.
shit. So that's my ghost story.
Well, on that note, Alice, you can catch Garrett DeVaughn in Ashland City at, where was it?
Shy Eye Girl on the 29th of this month.
Of this month. Alice, it's a very special date. Do not be late. Garrett, thank you again so much for being here. This has been a pleasure.
Thanks to both of you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you are welcome back anytime. Alice, have a good night. We'll see you next week. This court is now adjourned.